I get asked all the time, what is the best method to get realistic fur and how do I start? There are many methods and techniques for creating realistic fur with coloured pencils. Some people lay a solid colour down first and add the texture after. Some people work over the entire subject, adding layer after layer. My technique, which has been very successful for me and for my students, is to think about the texture of what I'm drawing first. Trying to get the first layer so that it represents that texture is incredibly helpful because you can see what the texture is going to look like straight away. It also gives you an idea of structure and helps your brain see what it is that you're trying to do. I would never say one method is better than another, only that one method may work better for you. I've seen artists say, never do this, and that is not something I would do, as sometimes different methods work better for different people. So this is my way. I know that colour pencil is a slow medium, and I know that during the process we go through ugly stages, and trying to keep those ugly stages to a minimum is incredibly useful, not only for your ego, but also for your confidence. If we see things taking shape and they look correct and lovely, that is going to do wonders for confidence. How many pieces have you got to a point with and said, oh my goodness, this is awful. Right, I'm scrapping it and I'm starting again. We all do it, and it's usually to do with the ugly stage being apparent for a little longer than we had anticipated. If you use this method, you will keep those ugly stages to a minimum. Depending on the surface I use will depend on the techniques, but to be honest, whether I'm using hot press, drafting film or my favourite pastel mat, laying down the first layer for fur is the same. I tend to sketch in my first few layers, which allows me to get some movement and the idea of the fur texture and quality. If we have wavy fur, adding in an idea of those waves, some sketchy curls perhaps. If it's short fur, then an idea of the change in direction is really helpful because it shows the form and structure of the animal underneath, and again looks quite pretty, and our ego loves quite pretty. During this video, I'm going to demonstrate how I lay those initial layers down. You'll be able to see me being quite sketchy. This can seem a little strange for a realism artist to be relatively loose in those first stages, but I do think it's a nice technique as it gives a bit of life to what you're drawing. We start off with some of the slightly darker colour in the puppy's leg, just getting an idea of the shape of the leg. Dogs' legs have bone structure and tendons that show through the fur, adding in some of the lighting and working out some of the shapes at the bottom. This particular tutorial has leaves that the puppy is sitting on, so I kind of needed to work out how they were going to work with the bottom of the legs. Using really light pressure, I carefully add in the direction of the fur as my initial layer. This gives us the structure right from the beginning. The colours I use here are Derwent Light Fast Mars Black, Polychromos Cinnamon and Light Fast Wild Lavender. Again, sketching very lightly onto the surface of the direction of the fur, we start to see the leg take shape very early on. These pencil marks form the basis of the fur and will show through the layers as you add more. You can see I add very loose strokes. I don't fill the paper and there is a lot of the surface of the paper showing through. This is so that I can get a lovely variation of colour. Animal fur isn't all one colour, it's got all sorts of different colours and values, shades coming through. Using the Polychromos Venetian Red brings a bit of a glow to the fur, filling in a little bit more of the leg. The colours are all going to work beautifully together, purpley, orangey, pinky reds and Caput Mortem Violet. Working over the joint area takes care and attention, really concentrating on the fur direction and of course those very subtle value changes. This kind of area can take a little bit longer to get right. It's worth just taking your time so that you get the really lovely idea of the bend in the leg, the dips and the curves. I try to keep my fur lines consistent with the animal I'm drawing, short strokes for short fur and longer ones for longer fur. Once the layers are in, then the smaller details can be added. Highlights, when using pastel mat, light over dark works beautifully, making sure that the structure of the leg is correct. This piece is small, so the details are more illusions, and we use lights and darks to really get the form of the subject. Tiny details aren't really necessary. Getting your values correct will do far more for your piece than details ever will. This technique works for any kind of fur. It allows you to get a sense of the structure of the subject right from the beginning. It allows you to get all of those important values in very early on and gives you a lovely, rich base to work any further details in. It's good for your ego and your confidence as things stay looking pretty nice from the beginning and those ugly stages won't last long. This piece is a full tutorial available in the Academy membership, taking you step by step through the whole piece.